My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. 23 minutes after the hour. Hey, I'll tell you, one of the things that I have really enjoyed about running for office is meeting new people. And I always try to meet new people, and I try to have a diverse area of friends from all walks of life. And I think I've largely succeeded in that goal of having a diverse friend group. But I have not been able to match the pace of new people that I've been meeting over the course of the last 4 months, and there is just no way that I would have, in any other circumstance, been able to meet as many people as I have over the last 4 months had I not chosen to run for office. And one of the great treats that I've had is getting to know certain communities better than I had previously. And one of those communities that I've really started to make a lot of inroads with and a lot of friendships with is the Albanian community. And I really got a kick out of meeting one of the leading Albanian activists, Albanian American activists, at a recent event that I was at. Turns out he is one of the best regarded epidemiologists in the country, a very well respected academic, big radio listener as it stands, and the author of a terrific book which tells an incredible story of really the best aspects of the American dream. The book is called Dreaming from the Trunk of an American Car, and its author is Dr. Pashko Camaj. Pashko, it's great to talk to you again. Thanks for getting up early for us.
My pleasure, Frank. Good morning to you and your listeners. Such a pleasure to be with you.
The pleasure.
Early hour.
Yeah, exactly. Dark and early. I appreciate believe me, I appreciate the accommodation. All right. So take us back to the beginning of your story. Take us to that harrowing moment where you and your twin sister, hidden in the trunk of an American car, crossed borders into the United States. One, how did you end up in that car? What was the circumstances that, what was the context as to how you got in that car? And what was running through your mind during that journey when you're crossing into the country in the back of a car? Trunk of a car.
Well, it's a long story. It started about 40 years ago, 1985 to be exact. It will be September. This year will be 40 years. A year or so before that, late in 1984, my sister, who happened to be my twin sister, said something to me, seeing that I was somewhat disappointed, having just finished my high school prep or med school, not being accepted in the school that I wanted to, somewhat disappointed having finished the army. That was mandatory. Just one day, she could read my face. I mean, a twin sister could do that, I guess. Unfortunately, she passed away 3 years ago. It's going to be her third year anniversary tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And so one day she just uttered, America has room for us, and space for us. And I was, because up to that point, it never really crossed my mind to come to the U.S. So I had my dreams, living there, having a life, going to school, but wanting to be a doctor. But she kind of sensed that that was not going to happen with everything that was happening then in Yugoslavia. This was 1985, before the full breakup of the country that I document in my book, kind of things that I saw that were leading to that event. They were very visible retrospectively, going back, looking at things now. I could have easily seen that that was happening. But when you're 20 years old, you don't really see those things, and you're somewhat innocent. So we decided to go to U.S. Embassy in Belgrade. I come from originally from part of Yugoslavia, then Yugoslavia. I'm an Albanian from Montenegro. So we hop on a train ride overnight to go to Belgrade. Obviously, at 20 years old or less than 20, we were denied a visa to enter U.S. So we come back desperate, despondent. What do we do next? And then the next plan B was to do something that many people from our part of the world had done during that time, and unfortunately continued for many years after, or fortunately for some, unfortunately for others, to get the plan B, which was to get to Mexico, and from Mexico hitch a ride, if you will, to U.S. So on a, I guess, fixed visa, because in those days channels were such that you pay money, you get a visa, and we get to U.S. in 1985. It was actually a day or two before a large earthquake in Mexico, or after, I'm sorry, before our earthquake, we were at Mexico City, and left Mexico City on a connecting flight to Tijuana, where was our destination to meet our people, coyotes, if you will. But it was someone that our family had recommended, our connections had recommended, one of our kind, who met us in Tijuana, or one of his people met us in Tijuana. And the story was, as in the title of the book, once in Tijuana, they put us in the trunk of a car and crossed the border into San Diego. And I'm not sure if your listeners have ever been, or you have ever been locked in the trunk of a car, but I'll tell you that it's not much fun. And that's where it starts, and that hence the title of the book. And when we were locked, the three of us, in the 80s, early 80s, I think 81 or two, Chevy Monte Carlo. I don't know if you can visualize that car, but it's a pretty big car, large trunk. And three of us were in it, my sister, my friend, and I. And when that trunk locks, uncertainties begin, and anxiety, and what happens next. And the worst thing is, and I'm a kind that I'd like to know, when I'm on a plane, I'd like to ride the plane. I like to be the captain. So being in the trunk of a car in an unknown land with people who we couldn't speak any language, obviously neither Spanish nor English. And we locked in the trunk for about 45 minutes, maybe less than an hour, but it seemed like eternity. And when the trunk opened, we were somewhere in the garage of a slightly, because I saw through the door, slightly different landscape, looked greener, looked a little better. And we surmised we were in U.S., and it happened to be that we were in a suburb of San Diego somewhere. And from there, the rest of it is basically... the readers will have to read the book.
Yeah.
That's how we got into U.S. It was harrowing, but
sure.
People took trips. My brother and some of other relatives had come earlier, a few years earlier. They had a different experience. They had to actually walk across the border through, I'm not sure what region of the country, I guess Texas, I'm not sure where, or Arizona, but they walked across. We were lucky we were locked in the trunk. It was much faster, but I'll tell you one thing, I don't think anyone would want to be locked in the trunk ever again.
Oh, no. I would think not. 31 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Dr. Pashko Camaj. His book is Dreaming from the Trunk of an American Car. It's available on Amazon or wherever books are sold. So, Pashko, many people dream of coming to America around the world, but very few take such extraordinary risks. What was the turning point that made you and your sister decide that you had to leave? I guess it was Montenegro at the time.
Yes, Montenegro. Well, I think at that point in time, when you're 20 years old and you see no dreams, you see no future, case in point, myself, I had been just rejected from my acceptance to medical school, which was my dream. It wasn't because I was a bad student or anything like that. It's just that competition was huge, and everything was done in those days by connections. So if your father was not, Army general or somebody serving the country or being connected with politics, it was a very hard time to get in. So I wasn't accepted. Jobs were scarce, if at all. 20 years old, you hear stories about this great country, great place where dreams are possible and everything is golden. And watching, even though I didn't speak any English, maybe 5 words from limited movies that I had seen at that point in time. So really, it's just one day it just comes up, and you hear the story. It was very common in our part of the world that people were leaving by draws. Just by many of them had left before me and after me as well, and we just hopped on a train of dreams to come to U.S. and fortunately we were able to, through this route through Mexico, to get in. And once we were in U.S., everything was basically start from scratch, start from zero, and dreams were there. But I had to, obviously, U.S. is a great place, and many people across the globe want to come here, but it's not. It doesn't come easy. Meaning that a lot of things have to happen to make it, and to be part of this great country and great experience, which I could say I am. But even with having said that, having actually been part of that American dream, I could tell you that for sure. There's always that going back and sort of asking yourself. That first generation would probably, anyone who has come to this country, while they do achieve American dreams, there's always going to be some sort of balance with the past and dreams that you had there. And in my case, and as I document in the book, I really deal with a simple question. If I, for example, have wronged my predecessors, in the cover of the book, you'll see a book, an old house, which was my house where generations lived, and my father and all his, prior generations. And one day I get up one sunny day with my sister and leave, and all their legacy as far as they're concerned, and their legacy for centuries, hundreds of years, it's gone, and I'm starting a new life. Now I'm an American, and that's sort of a guilt for having left all that behind and coming into a new country and starting a new life, just being an unknown, just a number from a place where everyone knew everyone was connected. It's really not an easy thing to do, especially when you're grown up, like 20 years old, when you had dreamt of having a life there. All of a sudden, everything is torn apart, and you have to start from below zero, if you will. Because keep in mind, in addition to the risks for to come here, it's also a significant financial burden. I mean, it cost us, me and my sister, then in those days, about $10,000 just to cross the border with the plane tickets.
Wow.
So it was. It's interesting. I got here in Michigan from Los Angeles because in those days you could get on a plane without any IDs. You just buy a ticket. And our friend who picked us up in San Diego, one of our distant relatives, it was all prearranged. Put us on a plane, got to Michigan on a Sunday afternoon on a gloomy Saturday, 22nd of September, 1985, drizzly, somewhat rainy, cloudy. We drive over the Detroit City metro area. Everything is gray. and ended up at my sister's house that afternoon. And at 6 o'clock the next day in the morning, I was actually going to work painting on the roof, the structures of the Henry Ford factories in Michigan, obviously illegally without any documentations. So at 6 in the morning the next day, I was working, and I never stopped working since.
And that is for sure.
My name is Lily, and I've had hidradenitis suppurativa, HS, for years. I finally found some relief since taking Cosentyx. Relief means I can show up more.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe hidradenitis suppurativa, HS. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your dermatologist about Cosentyx.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV Insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep. I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install. We can also send you samples fast and free.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need.
So the first room we're looking at is for...
Shop Blinds.com now and get up to 50% off with minimum purchase. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for a light and fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of graham cookies, caramel pearls, and dark chocolate, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 light and fit remix varieties with craveable flavors and up to 120 calories and 10 grams of protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
If folks are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. We're talking with the author of a book called Dreaming from the Trunk of an American Car, Dr. Pashko Camaj. Also, one of the leaders of one of the oldest Albanian groups in America. In fact, it's even older than the country of Albania itself. Your memoir, Pashko, speaks to the universal immigrant experience. How did your initial struggles in America shape your perspective on what it means to chase the American dream?
Well, first and foremost, when I got my first sort of put in, I sensed that here I am now, make it work, make it happen, do everything I needed to do. And one thing was clear to me that from that first day in, as a matter of fact, I threw it was Yugoslavian passport. I just threw it away. I said, that's it, never again. This is my country. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it work. And work was plentiful in those days. I was young and energetic, and at first just working, nothing else. But a few months later, I sort of said, well, let me start to learning this language was not that easy because we were pretty much within our own community. As you can imagine, most of immigrants who come from parts of the world, they tend to find their own and commingle with one another, offer jobs and opportunities, things like that. My case was such as well, where I got a job with one of the Albanian painting companies then, who had hired a bunch of people, including myself. We were just basically working off the books, cash, whatever they were paying us. Actually, my first boss was such a generous man. He had started for $5 an hour. And my first pay was actually $8 an hour because he saw that I was working. I was not, holding back. I was giving everything I had. And my first pay, and it's documented in my book, which was enormous amount of money compared to the money that when you come early, you cross-reference everything to what you left. And $8 an hour was probably the payment that I would not have gotten there for the week where I came from, or something like that. So it was an enormous amount of money compared to where I had come from. But starting to work, and then later I made it into New York. I wanted to always come to New York. It was just one of those things and there was another circumstance where something pulled me to New York, and that was my future wife-to-be, who I had seen in Montenegro previous summer for a brief moment. And in those days, obviously, no social media, no phones, etc. I didn't even know her name, but we connected a little bit. And then my sister, who was already here in New York, said, "Hey, Pashko, that girl we saw last year at the summer fair in Montenegro? I said, oh, she's here in New York." Well, a few days later, I was in New York. I drove to New York.
There's a lot of talk of immigration these days, both in New York and around the country. And I'm wondering how your experience 40 years ago affects your perspective on what you are seeing today. Do you feel that the American dream still holds true today? Has your definition of the American dream changed over time? And what's your feeling about how America should handle the influx of migrants, both legal and illegal, that want to come here from all over the world?
That's a great question. There's like 2-3 parts. But first, let me just talk about how it is for how I saw it then and how I see that American dream. And obviously, many people wanting to come here. I made it clear that first day that I stepped foot into this great country of ours that I wanted to be part of it without any doubts. And that's how I feel most people that come from across the globe in whichever means or ways they make it to U.S. That's their guiding sort of mission. Unfortunately, in the last, this has been ongoing saga. When we crossed in 1980s, probably the border crossing was a very common way to come here illegally. But I guess everything has to somewhat do with the sheer numbers. When we talk about, and this is kind of dealing with how I feel about it, I think if somebody comes here to this country and obviously comes for one main reason, to make it in America and be integrated part of this country and be an American, that is, to me, that is always somewhat, at least deserves a look. I don't care which way they arrived. But unfortunately, when you have these extremes and you have almost no control at the border, where it's completely almost open, where we don't have a control of who and how, and in a day and age that we live in, where many people, or not many, but maybe some people that make it through are not those that, like myself and many others, probably overwhelming majority of those that cross the border, want to do what I did. Be an American and achieve the American dream. But unfortunately, there are those that don't mean that they don't see America as that. They would want to harm us, and for whatever reason, whatever it means. And that's where you have to have some sort of balance, and where I could understand the politics of it, take one side or the other. I just want the listeners to know that from my perspective, an immigrant who comes here, there's a story behind them. There's a life. There's something that they bring and actually enrich our country if allowed to do it in a way that is constructive and they integrate and everything else. I think they do. I think U.S. has been enriched by me coming here in a way, even though no one owed me anything. But the point is that we need to have a thorough look. I think my perspective would be, or my view of this would be, take it a case by case and look at them, and whoever made it here, however they came here, give them a look and see what they could offer and what they can do, and maybe try to. There's always room in this country to offer an opportunity and a realization of the dreams of those that made it here. Obviously, looking at those that they're not wholesome. We've seen a lot of on TV with criminal elements that make it through, obviously, because it's not everyone who comes in this country comes for reasons of such as mine, but such as I did. But the point is that we have to have a border for sure. It's really, I think that goes without saying. Every country needs to have a border and has a control of the border. Now, will some borders be porous at times? Yes, that's true, and especially our country, which is an open society, open country, people will make it through even in means that are considered illegal. Obviously, coming in without proper documentation, it could be viewed obviously illegal. I entered it that way, but I think we need to look at these not with a broad brush and just eliminate everyone or remove everyone. I think we should look at, and I think what's been going on in the last few weeks or months, I can understand where you deal with this very criminal element in a society that really needs not to be here. I think it's hard to make an argument against it, let's put it that way. But at the same time, those that made it here have lives, have stories, have dreams, Let's try to sort of meet in the middle where everyone comes out okay, and at the end there's no hard feelings in the way that people felt like they came to a dream that turns into a nightmare. I think we have the room, we have the ability, we have the space to allow people to do that. Again, because I don't want to sound like I don't want any controls. Obviously, that would be silly. But we want to have some sort of sense of who and who's coming in the country for what purpose, and if they're coming for simply to become an Americans and integrate into society and be part of it, productive society. I think those should be given a good look.
You intertwine your own story with the legacy of your ancestors. How did your family's history influence your own journey?
Well, that's what I try to document or talk about in my book. And one of the things that, as boys would, in most cases, young men would want to always imitate or try to be like their dads. Their fathers were always their heroes. And truly, my dad was my hero. And as I write in the book, the stories that are harrowing at points, I learned so a lot of pieces of the book that bring those stories back to life. You'll see when, for example, my grandfather was executed by the communist regime in 1945, taken from this old house that's on that picture of the cover of the book, which is our old house back in Montenegro. He was basically taken off from, house is surrounded by 20, 30 communist soldiers and whatever there were then, and basically demanded for him to come out and give himself up, which he did because he didn't want to put the resistance, because had he done so, the whole family would have been basically murdered, and they would have done it with pleasure. So they take him away a mile from his house and execute him without any jury or anything like that. Execution by those that had guns and who had won the war, the communists. My grandfather was not a communist. He didn't want to be part of it. He didn't see that as part of his life, and a simple execution was the remedy to that. Then horror stories are my dad and things. So all of these and small pieces that I talk throughout the book in my life that impacted me, whether their stories and things that I've seen myself, make it possible where you're the straw that breaks that camel's back, and one day then you decide to leave because you see all these pieces. When you see them individually, they don't paint that clear picture, but when you put them all together, you see that really the future as an Albanian in that part of the world, in Montenegro at that point in time, as it was for many decades even before that and continued for a while after that, there was not much future for us there, and decided to leave. Again, when you're 20 years old, you don't, risk and benefits perception is a little different than when you're a little older, obviously. So, but that legacy, to go back to your question, all throughout my life and even to this day, anything that I've done or do, or I try to always kind of see it from a prism of would my father approve of it? Would he be happy with what I'm doing? And I think for the most part, everything that I've done, I think he would be so proud and approve.
I could tell you that with certitude, never having met your father. Yeah. Absolutely. Let me end with this. We only have about a minute left, and I hope you'll come back because I have a lot more questions for you. But you've been an advocate, as I alluded to, for the Albanian American community for a while now. What are some of the biggest challenges that community faces today, Albanians specifically?
Well, one thing that you touched on was the legacy, and one of the things that we as first generations or second generation, we try to be the bridge between U.S. and our world there, because Albanians have great debt towards U.S. and for many reasons. And for example, the independence of Albania was somewhat tied to the President Wilson actually meeting with the founder of Batra Federation, which I'm its secretary today, 113 years ago. And Van Noy was the prime minister for a short period of time in Albania. A lot of immigrants had come from Albania to the Boston region. and needing, as the breakup of the Ottoman Empire was happening, powers that be and our neighbors were not very kind to us, especially Greeks and Serbs, and we had a struggle to maintain our homeland and create a country, to which we owe that debt of gratitude to us for supporting that, at least that initially in 1912, when we declared independence from the Ottoman Empire. As a result, U.S. was also our ally during the recent war in Kosovo, independence of Kosovo. So all of those things connected. We have an enormous gratitude to this country. And then as far as Vatra goes and our Albanian organizations here, we try to keep that legacy. And also one challenge that you mentioned before we asked, we would like to, while we are great Americans, we want to be integrated part of American society. We also like to keep our roots and know where we come from and what's our origin, and try to preserve those legacies, because we feel that our job is to do exactly that. And so our children tomorrow, my kids, my grandkids, et cetera, and our kids could learn the history, learn that they belong from a trunk of from a place in the world that is Albanian, and continue their legacy for what they've done, for the sacrifice that they've done over the decades and centuries, if you will.
Wow.
And so they'll have that connection. So it's really about legacy and preserving that legacy, while, again, being great Americans, also being great Albanians.
I have enjoyed talking with you this morning. I am really encouraging everybody to check out the book. Again, if people want to check it out, it is called Dreaming from the Trunk of an American Car. It's available on Amazon and anywhere else books are sold. Pashko Camaj, it is great to talk with you. I hope we can do this again soon.